There are 15 things in the average kitchen right now that were considered medicine long before they were considered food. One of them lowered blood pressure in a clinical trial by the same margin as a prescription pill. It costs about $1. One was packed into battlefield wounds in the First World War when the antiseptic ran out. Packed in. The surgeons chose it because it worked. One held scurvy off an entire ship's crew for years. More men died of that deficiency on other ships than from any cannon. One was the official medicine of the Roman Empire. A statesman claimed his family never needed a physician because of it. One is used in hospital burn wards today, not folk medicine. Active clinical use. In modern hospitals right now. One has been in continuous medical use for over 5,000 years, written into the medical records of ancient Egypt, Sumer, China, and India, independently of one another. One outperformed a common cough syrup in a randomized trial. After 20 years as a nurse, that one still surprised me. 15 foods, grocery aisle prices, medical histories most people walking past them have never heard. One note before we start: nothing here replaces your doctor. Every claim today comes with a real source. We'll go through all 15, what the history actually shows, and what the research confirms. Plain language, no fluff. Some of these will feel familiar. A few will change how you look at your own kitchen. We start with the one the field surgeons chose when the antiseptic ran out. Garlic. I know you were expecting something exotic, and here I am starting with the plainest thing in the drawer. But stay with me. This one earned its place at the front, and it earned it a long, long time ago. Long before it was a flavor, garlic was a tool. The workers who hauled the great stones in Egypt were handed it every day to keep their strength up. The Greek they call the father of medicine prescribed it, and when the medicine cabinet ran dry on the front lines in the First World War, the field surgeons crushed it and laid it straight into wounds to hold off the infection. Then in the Second World War, the Russian Red Army leaned on it so heavily, running short of proper antibiotics as they were, that it picked up the name Russian penicillin. And it earned it. Here's what's going on under the hood. In plain terms, when you crush a clove, not before, and that's the whole trick, it makes a sharp sulfur compound that isn't even there in the whole clove. That's the stuff that gives garlic its bite and its work. It signals your blood vessels to loosen and open up. Picture easing your grip on a garden hose. Same amount of water, but it's not fighting the walls anymore. It just flows. The pressure inside comes down. And that isn't old wives' talk, dearie. A pooled review of a dozen careful trials, hundreds of folks already dealing with high blood pressure found garlic brought the top number down by right around 8 points on average. 8. Same neighborhood as a first-line pill from the pharmacy. From a bulb you can grow in a bucket. The detail most people get wrong is the timing. Crush it or chop it fine, then let it sit on the board a good 10 minutes before it meets any heat. That resting spell is what lets the good compound fully form. Toss raw garlic into a screaming hot pan and you cook the best of it right out before it's done a thing. A whole roasted head is lovely and sweet, but it's the raw or barely cooked rested clove that carries the medicine. I'll add one nurse's word of caution because I'd be remiss not to. If you're already on blood pressure medicine or a blood thinner, you talk to your doctor before you start leaning on garlic every day. The two can stack up on one another. Thin the blood a touch too far, or drop the pressure a touch too low. Wonderful thing, garlic. Still needs a little respect and a word with the person who knows your chart. Honey. The oldest medicine we've got a written record of anywhere on Earth. There are clay tablets from thousands of years back, and honey sits right at the top of the list of wound ointments. Not one of the ingredients, the main one. The Egyptians dressed wounds with it. So did battlefield medics straight through the last century, and, this'll surprise you, so do a good many modern hospitals today, in the burn and wound wards with a medical-grade honey. The reason it works is almost too plain to believe. Honey is thirsty. Powerfully thirsty. It pulls the water clean out of whatever it touches, and that includes the bacteria trying to set up shop in a cut. A dried out germ is a dead germ. It's like pinning wet washing on the line on a windy day. Doesn't take long before there's nothing left of it. And on top of that, raw, unheated honey, the real, living kind, makes a slow trickle of the very same thing that's in the brown bottle of peroxide in your cabinet. Gentle enough it won't harm you. Harsh enough the germs can't abide it. Now the modern side, for the thing most of us actually reach for it for, a cough, a run of careful trials, Hundreds of children with a nighttime cough that wouldn't quit found a spoonful of plain honey settled that cough and won them more sleep than the store-bought syrup did. More than the syrup. And without a single one of the side effects. That's not a small thing when it's 2 in the morning and nobody in the house has slept. One hard line I won't cross, and neither should you. Never, and I mean never, give honey to a baby under a year old. Not a taste, not a dab on a pacifier. Their little insides can't yet handle a spore that's perfectly harmless to the rest of us, and it can make them gravely ill. That's not a maybe, folks. That's a rule, written in hard experience. For the grown-ups and the older children, a spoonful stirred into warm water with a good squeeze of lemon of an evening is about as old and as gentle a comfort as there is. Buy it raw and local if you can. The cheap golden syrup that pours like water has been heated and filtered till most of the living goodness is gone out of it. A blessing from the soil, that one, by way of the bees. Ginger, that knobbly root that looks like it wandered in from another planet and got lost in the produce bin. Healers across the East have been handing it out for a queasy stomach for the better part of 2,000 years. And, as happens more often than the modern world likes to admit, it turns out they were onto something real and measurable. When your stomach starts up that unhappy churning, the kind that rides along on a winding road, or hangs over you first thing in a hard morning, or comes the day after a treatment nobody enjoys, ginger seems to settle the whole works down. The compounds that give it that warm bite appear to calm the churn and coax things to move in the right direction instead of the wrong one. It doesn't numb you or knock you out the way some of the pharmacy remedies do. It just quiets the storm, and the best evidence sits right where the old healers pointed all along. A gathering of a dozen trials, better than 1,000 expecting mothers between them, found ginger eased that rough early pregnancy queasiness noticeably better than nothing at all, and did it gently, without harm to mother or child in the doses they studied. That's a hard population to find something safe for, and here was a kitchen root standing up to the test. I keep it about as simple as a thing can be. A few thin coins of the fresh root, leave the peel on, that's fine, dropped into a mug, hot water poured over the top, and you let it steep while you read a page or two of something. A little honey if you like, a squeeze of lemon if you've got it. That's the whole recipe. The fresh root's got more life in it than the dried powder, so reach for fresh when you can. And because I promise to keep you safe, if you're carrying a child or you're on a blood thinner, do run it past your doctor before you make a daily habit of a strong dose. A cup of tea now and again is one thing. A concentrated supplement is another animal entirely. Even a kind old root deserves a second opinion when the stakes are high. Cinnamon, worth more than its weight in gold once, if you can imagine that over a spice. The old traders guarded where it came from with wild tales of monsters and giant birds, all to keep the price sky high and the source mystery. And long before it ever went into your grandmother's rolls, it was a medicine. Dear, a serious one, traded across whole empires. The reason it keeps turning up in the health talk is its steadying hand on the body's sugar management. Here's the picture. After a sweet or starchy meal, most of us get a sharp rise, and then a hard crash, up like a rocket, down like a stone, and that slump is when you go hunting the cupboard for more. Cinnamon appears to smooth that whole hill out, less of a spike at the top, less of a slump at the bottom, a gentler, more even ride through the afternoon. Think of it like the governor on an old tractor engine, that little device that keeps the thing from lurching and racing and stalling. It doesn't do the work of your medicine, mind you. Not for a moment. It just seems to help the machine run a touch smoother between meals. And it does a second quiet job on the side. It's one of the most powerful little guardians against spoilage there is, which is exactly why the old world packed it in with precious things to keep them from turning. Now, I'll be honest, the way I try to be, the evidence here is promising, but mixed. Some trials show a real, useful help. Others show precious little. So I'll not oversell it. The studies suggest a modest hand, not a fix, and no substitute for whatever your doctor has you on. A good shake over your morning oats or into your coffee is a fine, harmless habit. Just don't go swallowing it by the spoonful thinking more is better. A little of that bark goes a long way. And reach for the true kind if you can lay hands on it, Salon, it's called. Sometimes true cinnamon, on the label. Softer, paler, curls up in thin layers like a good cigar. The common grocery sort, the cassia, is fine in a pinch and in your baking, but if you mean to take it every day, the salon kind is the gentler choice on the body over the long haul. There's a compound in the cheap sort the liver would rather you didn't have a heap of daily. Turmeric, that fierce orange powder that stains everything it so much as glances at. Your fingers, your cutting board, your best apron. In the old healing traditions of India, going back thousands of years, it was the thing reached for whenever the body was sore and swollen and simply would not quiet down. They took it in warm milk of an evening, and folks there still do. Here's the picture I keep in my head. Swelling is a bit like a fire alarm. A good thing when there's a real fire. A real injury, the body needs to rush in and mend. Trouble is, sometimes that alarm gets stuck on and just keeps ringing, low and constant day after day for no fire at all. That endless ringing is what wears a body down over the years. The bright compound in turmeric, the thing that makes it so orange, seems to help settle that stuck alarm back toward quiet. Now, I'll be square with you, because fabricating certainty is the one thing I won't do in this kitchen. The research on turmeric is a genuinely mixed bag. Some good trials on sore, achy knees, the worn-out joints so many of us carry into our later years, showed real easing of the pain, on par with the everyday tablets. Others came up thin. So here's the truth. Promising, worth a place at the table, gentle to try. Not a cure, and not proven the way the oats coming up are proven. One thing the old cooks knew by instinct that the science only later confirmed: you must pair it with a crack of black pepper and a little fat to get any real use out of it. On its own, your body lets nearly all of it slip right through. Wasted. With black pepper alongside, the body holds on to far more. So a pinch of turmeric, a pinch of cracked pepper, a swirl of oil. That's the trio. And the old golden milk recipe had all three without anyone knowing why. I put a small spoon of it into a pot of rice, or a lentil soup, most weeks of the year. Not because it's magic, I've told you it isn't, but because the way the Creator built these humble roots, a little steady goodness folded into your ordinary suppers beats one big, rare, heroic dose every single time. That's true of most everything on this whole list, come to think of it. Small and steady wins. Oats, the most humble bowl on the whole breakfast table. But there was a time when a warm poultice of cooked oats was exactly what you laid on an angry, itching, weeping patch of skin to calm it right down. And folks still do, to this very day, for the chicken pox and the poison oak and the like. You'll find colloidal oatmeal in the fancy skin creams at the pharmacy. Medicine you could also conveniently eat for breakfast. The part that truly earns oats a spot on this list, though, is a special soft fiber tucked away inside them. When it hits the warm water of your insides, it doesn't just pass through, it turns into a soft, thick gel. And that gel grabs onto the cholesterol the way a good sponge grabs a spill on the counter, and it carries a fair share of it right out of you, out and gone. It's a bit of housekeeping you didn't even have to think about, done quietly with every bowl. And this one, folks, this one isn't a maybe. It's about as settled as food science ever gets to be. The health agencies signed off on the claim years and years ago, and they don't do that lightly. Get about 3 grams of that special fiber a day, roughly what's in a good, generous bowl, and it lowers the bad kind of cholesterol in a way you can actually measure on a blood test, not a whisper of an effect. A real, repeatable, put it in the guidelines effect. Reach for the whole rolled oats, or the steel-cut kind if you've the patience of a morning, though. Not those little single-serve packets of sugar with a bit of oat dust in them. Those have been ground so fine and sweetened so heavy that a good deal of the good work gets undone before you've even finished the bowl. The less a thing's been messed with before it reaches you, the more of its medicine it's still carrying. That's a rule you can apply to this whole list, truth be told. A bowl in the morning with a handful of berries and a shake of that cinnamon we just talked about. Well now, that's 3 items off this very list gathered in one warm dish. Fiber, guardians, and a steadier ride through the morning, all in a bowl that costs you pennies. My own mother would have called that a bargain, and she was not a woman easily impressed by a bargain. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. You've heard it your whole life, and likely rolled your eyes at it more than once. But that little rhyme is far older than your grandmother's grandmother. It comes down to us from the old country, and it started out blunter than the version we say now. And the plain-spoken old folks who wore it smooth weren't just making pleasant conversation over the fence. There was hard-won observation packed into it. Apples carry that very same sponge-like fiber the oats do, a soft one that grabs and sweeps as it goes. And most of it is packed just under the skin, which is exactly the part so many folks peel off and toss in the compost. That fiber helps carry things through, steadies out that same sugar hill we spoke of with the cinnamon, and feeds the good little garden of life down in your gut besides. 3 quiet jobs from one afternoon snack. And there's a second gift tucked in the skin, a natural compound the apple makes to shield itself from the sun and weather on the branch. In us, the studies suggest, it acts as a quiet helper, one of those guardians that mops up a bit of the internal rust that time and living work on us from the inside. The redder the peel, generally, the more of that protection it carries. Nature does love to advertise her goodness in bright colors, so the whole of that old rhyme comes down to one bit of plain advice: eat the skin. Don't go peeling your medicine off and throwing the best part on the heap. A crisp apple, skin and all, in the mid-afternoon when you'd otherwise be reaching for something out of a wrapper. That's the medicine and the treat in the one hand. Give it a good rinse and buy it unwaxed and unsprayed when you can manage it, since the skin's the very part we're keeping. I keep a bowl of them out on the counter, right where I've no choice but to walk past it a dozen times a day. And that, if I'm honest, is half the whole trick with any of this. Keep the good thing out where your hand falls on it first, before the tin of cookies gets a word in. We're none of us as strong-willed as we'd like to think, dearie. Make the good choice the easy one, and the body follows. Cabbage. 2,000 years ago, a stern old Roman statesman named Cato the Elder wrote it up in a farming book as the finest medicine a household could have, swore his family kept clear of physicians entirely by eating it and by dressing their wounds with it. 2,000 years. And it's still the cheapest thing in the produce section. For a sore, swollen joint, the old way, a good one, was to bruise a big outer leaf with a rolling pin till the juice came up, warm it, and wrap it snug around the knee for the night. And nursing mothers, I'll tell you, still tuck a cool cabbage leaf in for the ache and swelling of those first hard days. That one never left the kitchens of the world, mother to daughter. And there's real, cooling comfort in it that generations of women will vouch for. Taken as food, cabbage was the old go-to for a sour, burning stomach. It seems to carry something, most concentrated in the raw juice, that helps coat and calm and knit up the stomach's own lining, like laying a cool cloth over a raw, scraped spot so it can settle and mend. Now, was it my grandmother or her older sister who swore by a small glass of that raw cabbage juice for an upset gut? Well, no matter which, the point holds either way. The one catch is the cooking. Boil the poor life clean out of it, the way many of us grew up eating it, gray and limp and sad on the plate, and you drive off most of the delicate goodness with the color and the crunch. Quick and light in the pan, a fast steam, or best of all, raw and crisp in a slaw, is where the medicine stays put. Heat is the enemy of half the good things on this list, if you've noticed the pattern. It's the plainest vegetable at the market, the cheapest by a mile, and it grows near anywhere in near any weather, which is exactly why the poor of the world leaned on it so hard and so long. And it's been quietly earning its keep as medicine since before we were writing our histories down properly. There's a lesson tucked in that about not judging the worth of a thing by the smallness of its price tag. And when you've grown far more cabbage than you could ever eat before it turns, you do exactly what our people have always done, all the way back. You let it turn, but on purpose, and in your favor. And that brings us straight to the one that kept the sailors alive on the wide, cruel ocean. On those long sea voyages of old, there was a sickness that killed more men than any storm or battle, the body simply coming apart at the seams for want of one thing only fresh food could give. Gums bleeding, old wounds splitting open, strong young men laid low, and a sharp-eyed British captain, James Cook, noticed that Dutch sailors seemed to suffer far less than anyone else. He asked why. Barrels of soured cabbage in the hold, they told him. He ordered the same for his own ship. His men came home whole, while other ships buried half their number over the rail. The turning, the fermenting, works two separate wonders at once, and it's a marvel our ancestors stumbled into long before they could explain a word of it. First, it locks that precious fresh food goodness safely inside the jar for months and months without so much as a cellar to keep it cold. And second, it fills the whole jar right up with the very same friendly little living cultures that keep your own insides in good, smooth, working order. Your gut, you see, and I saw the truth of this over 20 years, more than folks gave it credit for, is home to a whole living garden of its own. Billions of tiny helpers doing quiet work for you every hour. And a forkful of a properly soured living food is like scattering good seed across that garden and giving it a drink. Sour foods like this were the old world's way of tending that inner garden, long before anyone had a fancy word for it. Get the real living thing, though, kept cold in the refrigerated section. The jar that says raw or live on it. The shelf-stable jars on the dry aisle have been cooked through in the canning, all those good cultures cooked right out, and then it's just sour cabbage. Better yet, and it's easier than you'd think. Start a batch yourself. Shredded cabbage, a good measure of salt, a clean jar, a couple weeks of patience on the counter. That's the whole of it. Beets, that deep, earthy, blood-red root that stains your fingers and your board and your good white sink and just about everything else within reach. The Romans grew them for medicine, for the blood and the digestion, well before anyone thought to pickle them into a side dish. And the modern laboratory, after ignoring the humble beet for a good long while, has come swinging right back around to its side in a big and surprising way. Beets are loaded, more than near anything else in the garden, with a certain natural compound that your body then turns into a signal, a little messenger that tells the walls of your blood vessels to ease off and open up. Picture a tight fist slowly unclenching. Everything that was straining, all of a sudden, just lets go. That's your blood moving freer through wider pipes and the pressure inside coming down as it goes. This is the very one I mentioned away at the start. The dollar's worth of muddy root that made me set my cup down and read the paper twice over. The pooled trials found beet bringing the top blood pressure number down by right around 4 points. Now, 4 points is no cure, and I'd never dress it up as one. But 4 points, coming free from a vegetable, stacked up meal after meal across the years of a life, that adds up to something that genuinely matters for a heart. And you don't need the fancy pressed juice they sell for the price of a steak. Roasted slow till sweet and almost caramel, grated raw over a salad, blended into a deep red soup, the good compound comes through however you take it in. Don't be alarmed, mind, if it colors things a startling pink a day or so later. That's just the beet passing through, harmless as a summer rain. Gave me a fright the first time, decades back, before I understood it. Same word as always for my blood pressure, folks. And I'll keep saying it because it matters. If you're already on medicine for your pressure, and you start eating beets like they're going clean out of fashion, you check in with your own doctor first. Two good things pulling hard in the same direction can, between them, pull a touch too hard. It's a happy problem to have, but it's still one to watch with the right person. Cranberries. And I don't mean only that jellied sauce that slides out of the can once a year, gets nudged around the plate, and forgotten clean until the next. The native peoples of this land use the wild cranberry as food, as a dye for their cloth, and as a genuine medicine, all three at once, for generations upon generations before any of the rest of us ever set foot ashore here. And they reached for it, especially, and above all, for the particular misery of a bladder gone wrong, that burning, urgent, wretched trouble that so very many women know all too well, and so few of us were ever raised to speak of out loud. It's one of the most common complaints there is, and one of the most quietly suffered. And it turns out the little tart berry has a clever trick tucked inside it aimed at exactly that. The berry carries a special compound that makes the very wall of the bladder go slippery. So slick, in fact, that the trouble-making bacteria simply cannot get a proper grip and take hold and multiply the way they mean to. Think of a good non-stick pan. Nothing sticks to it, so nothing builds up on it, so the whole lot just washes clean away when the water runs. That's the berry's whole strategy, not a poison to the germs, just a floor too slippery for them to stand on. And the big, careful modern reviews land gently, but they land real. For the women who get those wretched infections again and again, cranberry can genuinely lower how often they come back. But hear me clearly here, because it matters. Prevention is the word, not treatment. If an infection's already got its claws in and set to burning, that is a doctor and antibiotics. No argument, no waiting on a berry. Cranberry is the fence you build before the trouble, not the cure once it's inside the yard. And here's where the grocery version quietly fails you. That sweet ruby cocktail juice smiling from the shelf is mostly sugar and water with only a whisper of true cranberry, and the sugar works against you besides. What you're after is the unsweetened pure juice, tart enough to make you pull a face, or the whole dried berries, or a good honest supplement. That sharp pucker that waters your eyes, that pucker is the whole point. Cayenne, that fiery little red pepper that lights your whole mouth up and brings tears to the eyes of the unready. Healers the world over, from the old peoples of the Americas who first grew it, clear across to the traditions of the Far East where it traveled, kept it close at hand for the belly, for the sluggish blood, and most of all, and most surprisingly, for pain. The heat you feel on your tongue is one single compound doing all that work. And here's the strange, wonderful part. Rubbed onto a sore, aching spot, a stiff joint, a nagging old back, over and over across the days, that same heat actually wears the local pain messengers right out. They fire and fire until, at long last, they've nothing left to say and go quiet. The ache dims. Strange trickery, using a burn to chase off a pain, but it holds up. And that's the exact idea behind a good many of the warming rubs and creams at the pharmacy for tired joints and weary muscles. Read the little print on the back of one sometime. That heat is very often this same pepper, dressed up in fancier packaging and priced to match. You're paying for the box, dearie, half the time. The medicine inside grew on a bush. Taken as a food, just the smallest pinch livens up a pot of soup or beans, and, so the old folks always held, and I've come round to it myself, it gets the circulation moving on a cold, damp, bone-chilling morning. And out here in this part of the world, believe me, we are never once short of those. A dash is plenty. This is one where more is most emphatically not better, and the pepper will teach you that particular lesson quick and thorough if you don't heed me. Wash your hands well and twice over after you handle it, and keep it a country mile from your eyes. I learned that one the hard way years and years ago, chopping a whole batch and then rubbing at a tired eye without a thought, and I've the vivid memory to prove it to this day. A powerful little thing, this pepper. Respect it the way you'd respect a hot stove, and it'll serve you faithfully. Olive oil, poured over open wounds by the old physicians to keep the rot away, burned steady in the lamps to light the long evenings, set solemnly aside as something near holy, something kept for the anointing of kings and the blessing of the sick. For thousands of years all around that warm Middle Sea, this plain golden oil was food and medicine and sacrament all at once, all in the one clay jar. And the peoples who ate this way, generation upon generation, kept their hearts strong deep into old age, long past when others had faltered. And when the researchers finally went digging for the why of it, a solid part of the answer turned out to be the oil itself. The real thing. The green, cloudy, peppery, freshly pressed kind, not the pale imposter. That little peppery catch at the back of your throat when you swallow a spoon of a truly good fresh oil, the one that makes you want to cough. That's a natural compound the science now suggests behaves a bit like a gentle food-size version of the anti-inflammatory tablets in your medicine cabinet. A soft, steady daily calming of that stuck fire alarm we spoke about with the turmeric. No prescription, no pharmacy line. Just a good supper, eaten the old way. The whole catch is the quality, and it's just where most folks go wrong without knowing it. You want it to say extra virgin, in a dark glass bottle that guards it from the light. And above all, you want to taste that grassy, peppery bite. The pale, cheap, flavorless stuff in the clear plastic jug has had nearly all the goodness refined clean out of it. And don't go scorching even the good oil in a screaming hot pan. That hard heat undoes the best of what you paid for. So I finish my food with it, rather than fry my food in it. A generous pour over the vegetables once they're cooked and resting, a flake of salt, a grind of pepper, and that, plain as it sounds, is a supper our great-great-grandparents an ocean away would recognize on sight as both the evening's dinner and the day's quiet doctoring. rolled into one good plate. Pomegranate, that strange, heavy, leathery fruit, packed impossibly full with hundreds of little glistening ruby seeds, each one sealed away in its own bright separate pocket like treasure in a chest. The oldest healing books that have survived down to us, some of the oldest writing of any kind that we have, spoke of the pomegranate with real reverence, for the blood, for the heart, for fertility, for long life. All that deep jeweled red is the tell, the way it so often is in nature. She packs her richest fruits with the highest measure of those quiet guardian compounds, the ones that stand watch against wear and tear, against the internal rust that the mere passing of time works on every one of us. And the pomegranate is about as loaded with those guardians as any single fruit in the whole market. Now the honest science, told straight. The early studies are gentle and promising, real hints that a regular habit of pomegranate may lend the heart and vessels a genuine helping hand across the years. But I'll say it plainly, as I always must. This evidence is still young, more careful suggestion than settled proof. Still in all, a lovely, harmless, delicious thing to fold into your week while the science grows up and makes its mind up. And getting those seeds out without wearing half of them is the part everyone dreads. So here's the old trick, passed hand to hand. Cut the fruit in half around its middle. Hold one half cut side down in your open palm over a deep bowl. Then give the leathery back a firm, steady drubbing with a wooden spoon. The seeds rain right down into the bowl, easy as anything, and you keep your kitchen from looking like the scene of some terrible crime. Then scatter those ruby seeds over the top of a green salad, stir a spoonful through plain cold yogurt, or just eat them straight from the bowl by the handful of an evening, tart and sweet at the very same moment, and a little pop and crunch to everyone, a little bit of fine jewelry that you're actually allowed to eat. That's honestly how I've always thought of the pomegranate, ever since I was a girl. A treasure hidden inside a plain brown shell. And we'll finish our 15 with thyme, that small, low, woody little herb that most folks nowadays only ever meet the once a year, tucked shy beneath a roasting bird at the holidays. But long, long before it was ever a mere seasoning, thyme was counted among the great old guardians, one of the herbs people trusted to stand between them and the rot and the sickness they believed traveled unseen on the very air. They strewed it across the floors of the sick rooms so folks would tread on it and lift its scent. They packed it in with meats and precious things to keep them from turning in the heat. The oil pressed out of this little herb is a genuine, honest cleaner, strong and proven enough that you will still, to this very day, find the very same compound it produces listed as an active ingredient on the antiseptic mouthwash sitting on your own bathroom shelf. Thymol, they call it on the label. The self-same plant, just a far fancier bottle and a far higher price. And for a troubled chest, in the old country ways, a steam was made up of it. Hot water in a bowl, a good generous handful of the herb dropped in, a clean towel draped up over the head to make a little tent, and you leaned in and breathed that warm, sharp, herby air slow and deep. For a stubborn, rattling cough that just will not turn loose its grip, folks still reach for exactly this, and there is honest, warming comfort in the simple doing of it, even setting the chemistry aside. A plain tea works a treat, too, gentle on a sore throat, a few fresh sprigs, hot water poured over, steeped a few minutes, a spoon of that raw honey from the start stirred through. But the concentrated pressed oil is a different animal. Strong stuff, never meant for swallowing, and I had not go near using it that way without someone who knows their way around essential oils. The plain herb, though, that's a quiet blessing you can grow yourself in a little pot by the kitchen door. And there it is, the whole 15, laid out on the table, every one of them medicine first, and groceries only long after, and everyone still doing its quiet, faithful work down through the years, whether we trouble ourselves to notice it or not. Now, I want you to do one small thing for me. Next time you're pushing a cart down at the store, just slow yourself down, only for a minute, right there in that produce aisle under those buzzing lights, because you have been walking briskly past the oldest apothecary in all the world, week after week after week, and calling the whole of it nothing more than a grocery list. And hear me, none of this is about turning your back on your doctor or throwing out your medicine. Heaven knows I watched modern medicine save lives nothing in my garden could ever have touched. I've no quarrel with it. This is about the other side of the ledger, the daily side, the quiet, cheap, everyday resilience our great-grandparents kept as a matter of course in the pantry and the garden, and that we somehow, somewhere along the way, set down and forgot we ever held: garlic and honey, ginger and cinnamon, and that fierce golden turmeric. Humble oats, a crisp apple, a plain head of cabbage, and the sour ferment made from it that once crossed whole oceans and saved whole crews. Deep red beets and tart cranberries, and that fiery little pepper. A good green peppery oil, a fistful of ruby seeds, and a small sprig of thyme growing by the door. 15 things, all of them sitting in the same aisle they always have, all of them waiting. The way I've come to see it, across all my years, the Creator laid this whole pharmacy out for us in the soil and the branches and the running water, and was gracious enough to give us the good sense to notice it and use it. All we've truly got to do, most days, is bend down a little and look and be grateful. That's very near the whole of it when you boil it down. So here's my one question for you, and I read every last answer down below. Which one of these 15 did your own mother or your grandmother keep in the house? And what exactly did she use it for? Not what the internet tells you, what you watched her do with your own eyes in her own kitchen all those years ago. Tell me the story of it, that passed down, over-the-shoulder kind. That's the real medicine, and it would grieve me to see it lost. And if this hour sat well with you and keep me some company, go on and subscribe, and I'll have another slow walk through the garden ready and waiting for you before long. Take good care of that body of yours between now and then. It's the only one you were ever given, and it's carried you this far. God bless you, and may He keep you well.